for everyone out there that looks at Aurum Gallery, I'm going to spend some time cutting the breeze, cutting the cheese with John Matos, better known as Crash, who really, for all of us, really is like a godfather, an OG from this scene. I mean, I saw a post the other day, and I was like, this guy's like 40 deep, like 30 years plus. And I'm thinking, you know, it's kind of like, I guess it's really difficult unless you're resilient in the way that if anyone's seen change and also seeing things reproduce themselves, like, you know, Black Lives Matter, the whole kind of revolution of, you know, you saw what it was going through. As, let's forget about color and race for a second, and let's think about simple guys. Let's think about the island of New York, and we think about Manhattan and the way that it was built by all of these people coming from the islands, and Cuba and Haiti and all of these places, and Puerto Rico, and living in the boroughs and building New York and building the train systems and everything else. And when the economic decline happened and New York was broke, I mean, no one really talks about that. They don't talk about that, you know, from a world point of view, they see all these mural artists and think, yeah, they're just painting. But I think you, especially with your background and that first wave, I mean, it must have been insane to actually exist in a place where the bubble letter or just a very simple thing was going to create massive world change.
You know, you know, when you're involved in something like that, like, you know, like the way you are with music, you don't think about that what you're doing is gonna create such a ripple effect, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. You're just in the moment doing what you're doing. And for many of us, it was just an act of survival, you know?
Yeah.
It's 1972, the city is broke. Half of the city, you know, the urban areas, if you want to call them that, the buildings are either burnt out or just in such bad shape that you have to just turn inside out and just take what's there and build on it. And no one's giving you anything to build upon. You just, you know, you're bringing yourself and where else is around you, and you prop yourselves up and you go from there. And you know, the result was the 80s was an amazing boom in the city.
I mean,
I think it came from that.
I mean, uniquely as well. We've cut the breeze a few times, and we have mutual, you know, being down with Tats is like an honor for me. You know, and you were like an OG member of Tats the whole way with Bob, with Bio and everything else and Nicer. And now where it started, and also beyond that, with all the crews you're associated with over the years. And I think seeing early Crash pieces, when I first saw early Train piece, I'm like, you know, the square style of Crash, you know, just crazy style. I mean, the amount of styles you went through, and to finally find over the years, seeing this unique style of what you have. You know, your stuff in the Aurum Gallery, you know, when I first got this stuff, it's so alien to people. I'm like, this is normal stuff. Like, you know, you and Bio, especially for me, it's like, this is a real kind of normal kind of graffiti writer. My style is very New York, but your style, especially in the way that it's almost like the art of simple complexity. You know, and I think and I think that's my quote, by the way. That's my quote on Crash.
I appreciate it.
but I think, you know, even when I came to see you in the Bronx, and you know, I came to Wallworks, even back then, I mean, we still haven't launched Arter after all this time because of everything going on. You know, and Henry, you know, being a sculptor in his own right, taking a sabbatical to kind of photograph this stuff, and James Springoff and Martha and everyone else. And then Henry got a lot of flack because he's like, all these other people are like, you know, but it's not just Henry, and we get that. But someone had to document this stuff. And when I think of the tip of the iceberg, the stuff that did get buffed, that no one saw, for example, you know, it's a bit like the camera, right? We take these pictures and we think, in the 80s, it was great. We take these pictures and we're like, yeah, this camera will just take a picture. And then you realize now with these kids, like, you know, when they've got these devices now, none of these cameras are going to be so important. The photographs aren't going to have any air of importancy because we're in a world where we didn't have that. But the idea of your influence and your style, can you just talk me through which was your main go-to inspiration as an artist? You're a graffiti writer, and of course that world's very much like this. You know, I was looking at Van Bode and all these other guys. Were you in the same thing, or were you like, for example, Lee Quinons? Lee was like, nah, man, I was into movies and big letters and King Kong.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because Lee and I sort of, well, we're of the same age, and we both grew up looking at things similarly. The difference was he's on the Lower East Side and I'm in the Bronx, and it was two different genres. I mean, the Lower East Side had access to the city. The Bronx didn't. I don't know if that makes sense. The Bronx, you know, has always been looked on or looked upon as the redheaded stepchild, you know?
Yeah.
You're on the Lower East Side, you're part of Manhattan. You're part of this greatness that's Manhattan. We had to cross the bridge.
You're like me being in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, and wasn't in London. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but you know what? That was an incubator for hip hop. You know, because we were sort of isolated. Yeah, there was music coming in from Canada and from the Middle East and, you know, from the Caribbean, but we were very isolated, and that was an incubator for, you know, what was hip hop. And you know, I was part of that brew, you know, whatever you want to call it. But my influences growing up was you know, Marvel Comics, you know, huge, but then also the very early anime, like Speed Racer. You're talking about Gigantor, Kimber the White Lion. All those was something that just like the simplicity of it. But you know, that early animation too, you know, it wasn't fluid. It was very like stop and then goes. So like if you see Speed Racer, like the camera will zoom in, and then also
for
like,
anyone doesn't know Speed Racer, was this like a Saturday morning or was it like a kid show? What was Speed Racer?
Speed Racer was an animated cartoon based on a racing family, and Speed, which is the name of the principal character, was the young driver for the family, and he was a daredevil. He was like a Batman type of character where just, you know, like something bad would happen, he would launch into it and correct the wrongs, you know. but he had an older brother who was like the black sheep of the family who like ran off, and his brother Racer X was actually a shadow figure that would help his younger brother Speed if ever he got into trouble. You know, that type of thing. It was fascinating, but just the beauty of it. And then, you know, you have the cars, the Mark V, which like the car could do like all these acrobatic tricks, and then everybody's trying to get the car. You know, just, you know, as a kid, you're like, wow.
Wow, but you know what's another thing with me? What's another evidence with your work? I mean, it's so. What I love about your work is that you've never hindered or been hindered. You've always, within your own genre, your own style, of just, it's Crash World. There's no, you don't try and be something that it's not. It's always had this, like I said, the art of simple complexity. And when I look at the Houston Road, the piece in, can you explain a little bit about Houston, that main wall?
Houston Street, the Popeye wall.
The Popeye piece. I mean, for me, I've seen many pieces of yours. But when I looked at the sheer scale of that, and of course, because everyone was starting to go big and bigger and bigger and bigger, but when I saw that, it was the idea that not only does your stuff transcend size, you know, it just has such an impact of the surrounding architecture that it's like, it's such a pleasantry to look at. It's not trying to, you know, it's not complicated. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, I've always felt simple is best, or, you know, minimal could be so like powerful. You don't have to have 10,000 things happening. The message gets conveyed either way. But the mural is funny because we had just done a big piece for Martha Cooper. It was her birthday. and we were invited to paint a big Marty on that wall.
I remember that wall.
There,
yes.
yeah. So that same day, they came up to Goldman people came up to me and said, "We want you to paint the wall, but we got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" "You got 2 weeks. You know, you got to do it in 2 weeks." I'm like, "In 2 weeks, okay, but we need something right away to look at." So I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? So I'm thinking in my mind, I want to do something that I've always believed that communicate. You know, what we do is an act of communication. We communicate, whether it's good or bad, that doesn't matter. What we paint, we're visualizing the words. We're putting it out there.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. And I want to do something that you would understand who it is, your daughter would, your grandparents, you know, an image. So originally I was going to do Ignat and Crazy Cat. I don't know if you know who they are. Ignat and Crazy Cat was some characters from the 30s and 40s. It was a mouse and a cat.
Like Felix the Cat kind of vibe, kind of that kind of vibe.
Yeah. It was very early, but the problem was that the cat was in love with the mouse. The mouse couldn't deal with her, so every time she walked by, he would throw a brick and hit her on the head. And every time the brick hit her on the head, she fall down. She was more in love, and so it was just I was gonna do that, but then I realized that if I do that, people are gonna say I'm anti-woman, anti-animal. Like all these thoughts. I'm like, nah, this is. So then
it's gonna get political. Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, I said, no, it's too complicated. Then I figured, Popeye's kind of cool.
Popeye's kind of cool.
I came up with an image of Popeye, and the whole background is all graph, but the Popeye is very iconic, very just simple to the point. But the whole background is us. I asked the guys to come in and paint a little bit. I wanted people to get involved in it, and I did it. Unbeknownst to me, it was such a huge hit that the people that owned the rights for Popeye took the wall and put it on the website. And,
wow.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things with you is that I can't even begin to imagine. We're a Nubian gallery, and we're in this pocket in Bangkok. We're in this place, which is a great area, Churong Krong. And it's always been this thing where contemporaries happen, but it's very internal, very influx, and I get that. And there's also these young Asian artists like Welcher P7, Jex, trying to explain to Jex about you or about mode. It's like he'd never heard, never seen. And I'm showing him some mode pieces. I'm showing him some tats pieces. And he's like, he can't even understand. Like, we had Subway Art. We had these graph books to look at. We had this kind of heritage. And I was so fascinated that it's transcended the actual form of the 80s, 70s and 80s so much that what you guys have created early on, like even people that are doing this new stuff and they're cutting back and it's new techniques, they're like, they don't even know where it's come from. It's a bit like someone playing blues and they're playing a guitar. It's like, you even know where those chords come from. But it's a good thing because I think that
it's growth.
There's a new way for them to explore style. And
it's growth.
It's growth, right? Now, one of the other things I can't even comprehend is you were for me, along with Lee, one of the first to cross over into what they call contemporary. Street art, graffiti. And the idea of, we were so inspired by what you guys were doing. When they got it in galleries, me and Vulcan, he came to England on the second trip. We rolled up canvases and we put them on our backs, and we got a train to Amsterdam, and we went knocking all these art dealers, knocking on the windows of art dealers, going, "Do you want to buy some graffiti canvases?" It's like it wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? But that idea of the hype also really helps in the beginning. But what was your first? Was it Moda? Was it an early show at Moda you did? What was your first kind of show, and what year was it?
Right. No, that was 1980. It was Fashion Moda.
Fashion Moda, right? Wow.
I got to shout out to two people. I got to shout out to Charlie Ahern and to Jane Dixon. What was happening was Charlie was just starting to write the script for Wild Style, and basically he hadn't even written the
script for Wild Style yet.
Right. Well, he wrote the story based on me. It was, a kid growing up in the South Bronx, because the whole movie takes place right around where I lived at. And the character is based on me. Well, my older brother was in Vietnam. So in the opening sequence, when you see the cat, you know, we see Lee walking in, his brother confronts him and he has a whole army thing. That was my older brother.
Shit, I never knew that.
Well, let's back up. I was actually supposed to play the character that Lee did, but I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do this thing on Broadway that I did with Futura and Hayes and Pink and Days, where we painted live on Broadway. I wanted to do that rather than the movie.
No way! I never knew that, John.
I told Charlie I don't want to do it. I read it, and he goes, "You got to do it." Like, no, I'd rather paint backgrounds and do this. I didn't want to do the part.
You didn't want to be the star. You didn't want to be the front guy.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. That's not who I am. So I just so I did something else. But the whole movie is based on that. So Charlie Ahern was writing this, and he wanted me to take him around different areas of South Bronx for location shots. So it was him, and that's when I met Fat Five Freddy.
Get the fuck out of here! No way.
And we're driving around, and then so then he asks me to meet him at this place called Fashion Motor. I'm like, what's that? He goes, it's this little gallery in the South Bronx. So it was 3 blocks from where I live. So I walk over. I didn't know Fashion Motor, but I knew the shop right next to it was a real famous sneaker shop. So we used to go there all the time to buy very early Nikes because we were into boxing. So Nike had boxing shoes that we can use that you could walk in the streets with. So that's what we used to go there.
That's a B-boy shit where you take it and you make it something else.
Yeah. So I met him there, and then afterward, his wife Jane Dixon was building an installation in Fashion Motor. So she wanted someone to paint. So she told Charlie to contact me. So I went and I painted inside, and then I brought Knock with me so we could paint more inside, so we could have some fun with it. And that was my first contact with a gallery.
A gallery.
And then after that, that's when they asked me to put together the graffiti.
Well, that's
show.
the thing when you think about Knock, and I think about Style Wars, the piece. I mean God bless him, God rest his soul. I mean, when I think about that piece, I couldn't get my head around it when I first saw it as a
Star Wars. Yeah.
I couldn't. It was like. Well, it was just, it's one of those things. It's like when someone does a classic, it was mind blowing. Yeah. But to think about you knew, this was you. You are part of that fabric. So what for me?
So with Charlie and then with Jen. Yeah. So then the people from Fashion Motor, Stephen Hines and Joe Lewis, they asked me if I want to do something. And I was like, yeah, sure. So they wanted me to do a one-person show. I didn't want to do that. I said, well, how about we just do a big graffiti show? And it was a killer show, and that sort of launched everything.
It's crazy because we're talking 80, 90. It's 40 years. Mm-hmm. And for anything, when we think about how close we were in the 60s to anything that happened back, we're talking the 20s. Yeah. It's like it's just a huge chunk of this is your life. And for me, we've been on the shoulder of giants, namely you guys. And I think between you and Lee, I don't think there's really, a lot, for me, we've lost a lot of people, but you've seen everything. You've seen people go. We've lost a lot of people. You look at Dundee, you look at all these great people that have gone. Yeah. And the train system dismantled, so to speak, and where it's gone. We went from the trains to walls. But I found it really interesting what Lee said when he said about the idea of when the movement of the trains changed and the way that people adapted. And everyone's got their own spin on it. I get that. But with me, when I look at your work and I can't even comprehend how many canvases you've painted. I can't comprehend how many walls, how many trains from back in the day. You've probably got a lot of unpublished things that you've probably got tucked away. I'm sure you have. Have you ever thought about, have you ever thought about doing that at Wallworks? You might have even done it. Have you thought about doing an archive show with what you have?
No, you know what? I'm more interested in what other people are doing.
You know what? I got to stop you right there. This is the killer. Everyone that I know, there's such a humanity and a humbleness about a true graffiti writer. And it's like people that make underground music. I don't really want to play my own music. I just want to play other people's music. Do you know what I mean?
In my home, I don't have any of my artwork because I know what I do. I'd rather see other things that other people do. Because that drives me. Seeing what other people do drives me because it shows that there's vitality, there's growth.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. I mean, it's impossible for me to acknowledge a lot of the young people that are out there now because there's so many. But the fact that they're doing it and they have that mindset, I think is great. I think it's just an evolution.
It's crazy when you think about it. When I look at the amount of work, and I think another thing I want to clarify as well. I mean, Eric Clapton's guitars. You were doing this stuff. There's probably loads of other stuff you were doing, but there's to clear anything up for anyone at Aurum Gallery. When I first knew about Crash, and there was this stuff of legend that, you were the first guy to cross over doing all this other stuff, but you had such an interest that Eric Clapton, either you knew him or you were painting guitars for him, and apparently they became, I don't know, am I wrong? Am I right? Did this become a big thing?
Well, I knew who he was. I knew who he was. I had an older brother who was big. This is like late '60s. So when he came back from Vietnam, he was huge on Jimi Hendrix. But then he had also Cream records. So that just part of my life as a kid growing up. And then I got into his music because I just liked what he did, especially the album that had the song Forever Man in 1984.
Yeah.
That's the old guy, So I knew of his music. So when he contacted me through a mutual friend that he wanted me to show him around the city because he was going to do a video. He wanted me. I'm like, well, why? I didn't know why me, but anyway, he knew who I was because he was a big art collector. So segue into me meeting him, I was like blown away because he spoke to my friend and said, listen, is it possible for me to reach him? So she called me and said, look, this guy's going to call you. And I said, who is it? Like, oh, this musician. She didn't want to tell me who it was. I go, okay, no problem.
Just got Eric on the phone.
So he calls me the following morning, and he was here for the Grammys in 1995, 96. I'm not sure. He's here for the Grammys, and he's on the phone and goes, hi, this is Eric Clapton. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. So he starts laughing, but then I heard the timbre of his voice. I'm like, oh, hello.
It might be Eric.
Yeah. It was as simple as that. That's what it was. So the day, so that night with the Grammys, and he told me, well, I have to work tonight, but I could see you tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Again, I didn't know.
It's the Grammys. I'm just gonna go to the Grammys.
He won like 6 awards that night for the song that he did with Babyface, Change the World. Wow. So that night he won 6. So the following morning, he blew off all the press, and we're just driving around. I took him to the Graffiti Hall of Fame. I took him uptown to Fordham Road. I took him everywhere.
Wow, and Fordham Road. Shit.
Yeah, I took him everywhere. Road. Yeah. So then
That's so ghetto. That's so ghetto. You take guns to Fordham Road.
This is even more ghetto. So we're in the car. He says, listen, I have to be at a sound studio at 3 o'clock. So, you could drop me on. Like, that'd be great. So we're just talking. So I pull up to the Sony studios on 50th Street. So I said, listen, before you go, I need you to do me a favor. So I pulled out the August album that he did. And I haven't, can you sign this for me? I just, this is one of my favorite albums. He signed it. He goes, why don't you come inside with me? I'm like, but no, I got a part. He goes, no, wait. So he calls somebody to come out, and they have a guy sitting in my car for 2 hours, double park, so I don't get a ticket. But then I go inside with him, and, everybody's like, he's one of those people that he goes to every individual and shakes their hand. He say, hey, he goes, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? So that day, he introduced me to David Sanborn, to
God, jeez, like David Sanborn, I had that on cassette. Jesus,
yeah.
Wow.
To oh my gosh, Marcus Miller, because they were getting ready to do a European tour of like these jazz legends or whatever, and they were going to do like all this jazz stuff, and he was one of the guys.
Wow.
And Joe Sample, the keyboard player from
Jesus, Joe Sample, I mean, that's my era. Joe Sample, David Sanborn.
I'm standing there going, so I didn't know what to do. I'm like, all right, thank you. Wow. So, and then we just became really good friends after that.
Wow. And so you painted a few guitars with him. I've seen a few.
Well, he had asked me if I would do a guitar for him, but a year went by. Our schedules were just so difficult. I didn't do a guitar. And then, true story, I just woke up one morning like in July, dead of summer. I'm like, you know what? I want to do a guitar. So I contact his people in London, and I get in contact afterward with his guitar tech, Fender sends me a body, and look at the guitar like, how the hell am I supposed to? It's like this big, you know.
Yeah, what
how am
are
I
you
supposed
doing?
to paint this? Yeah, very small. How am I supposed to do this? So it took me a week to figure it out because a Fender Strat has no edges. It's completely round.
Yeah.
There are no edges. So I painted it where I was hanging it from a wire, and as I painted it, I would turn it with my hand so the image could go all the way around. So now the thing is, he didn't know I was doing this. It was supposed to be a practical joke. So I painted the guitar, you know, I did the whole thing. I sent it to Fender. They set it up. They clear coated the whole thing. And they called me and said, listen, we're going to give Eric's guitar today, but we're doing it in a way that he's going to freak out. He's going to be in a studio with B.B. King. And they had like 6 guitars laid up. You know, they were all in cases. So, you know, like he walked in like, oh, what's these? And they told him, oh, these are new setups. Try them out. So he was trying every guitar one. And then my guitar was last. So when he opened it, he goes, he's looking at it, he's like, did Crash do this? And they go, yeah. They're all cracking up because, again, he's a huge practical joker. So he calls me. I'm driving with my daughter. He calls me. I put him on speaker, like, what's up? He goes, and he starts cursing at me. I'm like, what happened? He goes, I got the guitar. Oh, my gosh, I'm blown away. So it backfired because he loved it so much that he played it everywhere.
Well, I was inspired by it. I mean, I just did a charity gig. And ever since I saw these guitars, I wanted to do one. I did one last month, and I said to Bio, I'm so like inspired by Crash's guitars. It's never going to be Crash. It's never going to be as good as Crash. And I called it this, and I actually called it was a Fender Splatocaster. And I didn't think of the name. My partner said, "Why do you call it a Splatocaster?" I'm like, yeah.
Well, the Crashocaster that came from again from Lee's Guitar Tech. He named it that, and I'm like, that's funny.
Crashocaster, brilliant. That's how it started. I mean, you know, he's been such a source of inspiration, and I think for a painter and a creative as such, you know, in the gallery, having your work in there has been a blessing. And I you know, as truth as God, you know, we've slowly started selling the pieces, and I'm like, this is so good. And the people that have bought have like, I know this guy. But how do you get his stuff here? We're like, we got it here because, you know, that's what we do. We're trying to create this platform where world-renowned artists can be there, but also along some of these artists that no one really knows. And I think that's the beauty of what I'm about, you know, this kid E-Pod and this, you know, Tony Cogdall and, you know, and this guy called Matt. They're like, oh my God, I've got my painting. It's next to a Crash piece, next to a Bio piece. I'm like, that's what it's about. It's not just about the hype, it's what you do. And in your world, you know, with Wallworks, I saw a beautiful video the other day, and you had the FX boys down there.
Right.
And Edmundo, the kid from Brazil. I mean, the kids, the guy, they're painting like some 3D. I mean, this guy's doing 5D. Like, you know, crazy. He did 3 canvases for me. And the guy's just so humble to be part of the gallery, but yet he's with his big hitters. And he's doing like mammoth walls. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, I don't know what it is, John. It's something about a graffiti writer's, I don't know, dutifulness. We understand what the contemporary world is. Right. We don't get upside ourselves about it.
No, you know, playing the game for so long, you know, you realize what's real and what's not, you know. And you tend, I learned to navigate it, and the whole thing, like what you're doing, what we're doing with Wallworks is the same thing where, we're doing a show with Matt C, but we turn around and we show this kid from the Mitchell houses down the street who we think is an amazing artist.
When did the Matt C show happen?
We've done 2 shows with her. The last one was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, we got a few pieces from her. She's lovely. She's, you know, again, a female artist fighting for a space. You know, and I think of on the back of when you think about how a Nosm's impact come from Germany. You know, Matt Siege came out of nowhere. And, you know, in Thailand, they haven't quite got it yet. But, you know, they're going to get it because they're realizing there's this beautiful translucent kind of thing going on in these brush strokes, which I really feel there's a movement there with her.
She's the real deal. She's no joke. I think I'm one of the only task crew that painted with her, because all the other guys are like, nah, I'm not painting with her.
No, but you know what? They should, because she was gonna come.
She's a monster, man.
She was gonna come.
They didn't want to get, you know, like I painted with her twice, and we just paid for fun.
Yeah.
But they're like, we're gonna throw you to the dogs, and let's see what happens. I'm like, I have no problem with that.
You know what? The thing about it, I think with your style in terms of fills and the way that she paints, I'd like to see what you guys have done. But I think the perspective is on people that are channeling into Aurum Gallery TV, and the idea of what we're doing is that I like the idea of, we have this almost museum state where we've not worked on the so-called consignment model. We put our money where our mouth is, and the idea of having a space where people come in and they look and they can sit there and they can go, shit, this is a lot of space. And especially being in Asia, allowing us to have a space where they can stand back and look at a lot of this work. And even your work, in the way that I'm looking at it and the perspective of it, I'm really enjoying that. But I think this is what I love about you, John, is that the humbleness of being able to work with all these new cats. You know what a graffiti writer can be like. I remember when I went to New York the first time, I got such a rough ride because, they're going to break you, to let you in. You know what I mean? They're going to break you. But I always got away with it. But the idea of now in this world, we're allowing these artists that are so in love with your work and are so inspired by it. I mean, it's for me, I'm looking at all these guys. I mean, even Nick, look at Nick. I mean, I love Nick. Mr. Walker. He's just a cool cat. He's doing his thing. He said to me, I don't even know what prints I've got. He doesn't know what he's got. He's like, he's just the Nick. He's just being Nick. But he's great. But I think what you've done with Wallworks, was it a thing where you thought, you know what, I'm doing all these shows around the world. I just want to come home. Can you explain to my audience and my people in Asia, what is with Wallworks, how long you've been going? You've done a heap of shows there from everyone from Mad C to FX. Give me a little bit more about Wallworks.
Well, look, the idea with Wallworks was, as you get older, you start realizing that it's not all about you. There's a responsibility that you have to go back to where you came from and open the doors to others, because someone did it for me. So I had talked to my daughter one time. I said, I want to do something in my own neighborhood. And originally the idea was to open up a small restaurant. It was a small restaurant with only like 10 items in it. But if you don't have the money to pay for the meal, then you have to do something and carry it forward to someone else. So for example, if you come and look, I don't have any money, can I have dinner? Like, yeah, okay. But I need you here tomorrow morning because I need you to help deliver food to someone that's wow. That was the idea. That was the idea. But then I'm in Paris having dinner with someone, and out of nowhere, I didn't have any preconceived notions. I just came out and said, hey, would you be interested in helping back a gallery if I open something up in the South Bronx? And my daughter's looking at me like, what the hell is this? So this just came out. So anyway, we spoke about the idea, and we came back to the Bronx. I said, you know what? I want to open up a space here, and I want to show not only people that we know who are not represented by anyone, but young kids that there is no fashion moda anymore. That they can just walk in and see something. Yeah. So that was the original idea. So the gallery in Paris, they came to New York, and I already rented the space. I went in 2 weeks after my visit in Paris. I rented the space, and I went, and I already had legally claimed Wallworks as an LLC. So we were ready to go. The gallery of Paris came in, and then while they were here, everything was cool. When they got to Paris, they decided they didn't want to back the gallery. They said, no, because if we do it, we want to do it with our artists. I'm like, well, that's fine. Oof, but we also have artists in New York that need to be shown. Yeah. And so that's cool, So he walked away, but I had a friend of mine who was retired, my friend Robert. I brought him in to help put some money together. And, we opened we've been open 6 years. And the first show, which was like, to set the tone, we did a show with A1, Ramelzi, and Dondi. Wow. None of the work was available. It was borrowed from different friends, and I just wanted to honor. No way, just honor them. Yeah. Yeah, just to honor them, and that set the tone. We weren't there to make money. I told my daughter, we're not going to make any money. I told every artist that we do a show, we're like, listen, we don't sell. We just do something really good, and we're going to push it and show people, look, this is what we love, and introduce the art to to someone that's 16 years old from Mitchell or from Patterson who have no idea about the art world.
Wow.
But this is what's out there. So that was the idea. But you know, God is good. And from every show that we've done, we sold something, whether it's for $100 or for $5,000, we sold something out of every show.
What I love about this is the community aspect. And I think that, I think Asia's getting its own sense of community now. And even more so since COVID's gone, they realize it's not just a tourist destination. We need to look after our own. And I think some of the younger artists that are coming up that are noticed when I look at people like Wild Churchistical doing his, I mean, he's got his Statue of Liberty wrapped in fragile tape. Have you seen that piece? It's like, and you think about it, it's like, it's so kind of like my view on that and liberty and what it meant. And this Asian kid, you know, is just his idea of how he looks at America and how he looks at that and his own community. I think it's really special, and we've got high hopes, especially in these times where we've done really well on the high end. You know, Vils, we're about to get another consignment of Vils. He's got his show in Paris like next week. I think tomorrow it starts.
Oh yeah, with Magda,
Yeah, with Magda, which is going to be huge for him. But I'm just happy because, again, I wasn't expecting this, me and my partner. And I came here to retire, and that kind of went out the window, you know. But I just...
Well, you know what? When there's blood pumping in us, like you and I, we're not going to retire per se. Like, yeah, we're going to back away from what our normal activities are, but it's just going to increase something else. And you know, like my studio is around the corner from the gallery, and if I'm not at the studio, I'm there, you know, because it's just something that I love. And you know,
well, it's been an honor talking to you and catching up. And of course, you know, we've got mutual friends. We're part of the same crew. You know, when I put that name up and I just put Tats, and what I need to do, John, because obviously I haven't done it yet, I'm going to send you the documentary, which I did with the boys in Miami, you know, which is great. And Henry was great. And I just wanted to honor Henry and honor the boys. You know, you were away. I couldn't get you. We were away. We came there. We had a tight 3 days, but we did it. And it's just a testament to the boys. But I think we're on the last crash piece at the gallery, so I'm going to need a new consignment soon. I need some new crash pieces soon, man. So it's, you know, it's just, I know, we'll talk. But I mean, look, I'm really honored that you gave me the work. And
thank you.
I'm honored that people that are collectors there that have had to find some people that knew your work. And now there's a whole bunch of people that are going, who is this? And they're very interested, and they've come back and they've gone, I want to purchase this crash piece. So for us, it's, you know, you got work all around the world, but just know that I got you here. We got you here, and I'm a massive fan and part of the family, and I love you a lot, man. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, listen, we have the same song that we're singing, and you know, we just need more ears to hear it. That's all.
That's all. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna go and wake up old. He's got the beard now. Boyo's got the beard. He looks. I'm like, man, shave that shit off. He looks like an old man now.
That's funny.
I know. I love you very much, and thank you so much. And remember, I mean, the wall works thing's not over yet. I still want to get my work in there.
Yeah,
so
yeah. No.
I've just got the new prints done, so I'm ready to send some bits over for you. So we'll talk about that next week or whenever. Listen, love you very much. God bless you, brother. God bless you, man. Peace.